The Arctic is melting 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. And as the ice retreats, it reveals the true backbone of Russian power. Across this opening roof of the world, Russia is building ports, bases, railways, and entire towns designed to survive in the coldest edge of Earth. From Kamchatka's volcanic bastions to the mineral vaults of Norilsk, from Murmansk's ice-free gateway to the rising Arctic Silk Road linking Russia and China, every frontier points to the same truth. Russia's future lies in the north. Here, the country defends its heartland, fuels its economy, and negotiates its place between China, NATO, and the United States. Different Arctic futures loom, triumphant, limited, or dangerous, but all lead to one conclusion: without the Arctic, Russia cannot endure. For most countries, the Arctic is a distant frontier. For Russia, it is a wall, a vast frozen shield stretching across the top of Eurasia. The Arctic gives Russia something no other major power possesses: strategic depth on a continental scale. Behind this northern wall lies Siberia, an immense buffer of land, distance, and extreme climate. For centuries, it has protected Russia not only with armies, but with geography itself. Any threat from the north is slowed by cold, limited infrastructure, and distances so vast that logistics become a weapon. But Russia's Arctic strategy is not only defensive, it is also a platform for power. At the western edge of this frozen frontier lies the Kola Peninsula, one of the most militarized regions on Earth. Located near Norway and Finland, it is Russia's true western gate to the Arctic. Here sits Murmansk, Russia's only major ice-free port above the Arctic Circle and the core of its northern naval presence. Murmansk is more than a port. It is a nuclear naval fortress. From this region, Russia deploys a significant portion of its nuclear submarine fleet, including ballistic missile submarines that form the backbone of its second strike capability. Hidden beneath Arctic waters, these submarines ensure that Russia can respond to any nuclear attack, a cornerstone of its strategic deterrence. Stretching eastward from the Kola Peninsula are the Arctic Seas. The Barents, Kara, Laptov, East Siberian, and Chukchi Seas. Together, they form a natural military corridor along Russia's northern coast. Bases, radar stations, airfields, and missile systems are spread across this frozen shoreline, allowing Russia to monitor and control movement across the high north. What makes this corridor truly unique is Russia's most overlooked strategic advantage: its nuclear icebreaker fleet. Russia is the only country in the world that operates nuclear-powered icebreakers. These vessels keep Arctic routes open year-round, escort military ships, supply remote bases, and enable operations in conditions that would stop any other navy. In the Arctic, ice is not an obstacle for Russia. It is an advantage. And as climate change slowly opens northern waters, this frozen wall is becoming something even more powerful: a strategic highway, controlled largely by Moscow. This is the Northern Wall, a shield, a fortress, and a force multiplier that helps explain why Russia's security and global influence remain inseparable from the Arctic. Russia's power does not begin in Moscow. It begins far from its cities, deep in the frozen lands of the north and east. This is Russia's energy core, a vast resource engine that fuels its economy, sustains its state, and anchors its global influence. At the heart of this system lies the Yamal Peninsula, one of the most important energy regions on Earth. Buried beneath its permafrost are enormous reserves of natural gas, extracted and shipped from ports like Siberia, where liquefied natural gas flows toward both Europe and Asia. Even as pipelines face political pressure, LNG from Yamal allows Russia to reroute energy across oceans, keeping its exports flexible and resilient. South of Yamal stretches western Siberia, the true backbone of Russia's energy economy. This region contains some of the largest gas fields ever discovered, fields that have powered Russian industry for decades. From here, Energy moves west toward Europe and east toward Asia, generating revenue that sustains the state, finances infrastructure, and underwrites military power. But Russia's resource strength is not limited to oil and gas. Far to the north lies the Norilsk-Dudinka industrial complex, one of the richest mining zones on the planet. This remote region produces vast quantities of nickel, copper, and palladium, metals that are essential for modern batteries, electronics, and clean energy technologies. In a world increasingly dependent on advanced materials, control over these resources gives Russia leverage far beyond its borders. To the east, the energy matrix extends into the Pacific. On Sakhalin Island and across Russia's far east, offshore oil and gas projects connect directly to Asian markets. Japan, China, and South Korea all sit within reach, making this region a critical pillar of Russia's long-term energy strategy. While Europe looks westward for alternatives, Russia increasingly looks east. Together, these regions form a single economic system: the Arctic fields, Siberian gas basins, northern metal complexes, and Pacific energy hubs. This is where Russia's economic power is born, not in boardrooms or capitals, but in remote landscapes where resources, infrastructure, and geography combine to keep the country running. As global demand shifts and geopolitics hardens, this energy core remains the foundation of Russia's strength, and one of the main reasons its influence continues to extend far beyond its borders. For centuries, the Arctic was a barrier. Today, it is becoming a corridor. As ice coverage retreats across the high north, a historic opportunity is emerging, one that could reshape global trade and challenge the dominance of traditional maritime chokepoints. At the center of this shift lies the Northern Sea Route, a shipping corridor running along Russia's Arctic coastline from Europe to Asia. Once usable for only a few weeks each year, the route is now open for longer seasons and, with icebreaker support, increasingly reliable. For global shipping, the advantages are significant. Compared to the Suez Canal, the Northern Sea Route can shorten voyages between Northern Europe and East Asia by 10 to 14 days. That reduction means lower fuel costs, fewer emissions, and less exposure to delays caused by congestion, piracy, or political instability in regions like the Red Sea or the Middle East. But this route is not simply a neutral alternative. Unlike open ocean passages, the Northern Sea Route runs almost entirely through waters controlled by Russia. Moscow regulates access, provides icebreaker escorts, and maintains ports, radar systems, and military infrastructure along the coastline. What appears to be a commercial shortcut is also a strategic asset. To support this emerging corridor, Russia has invested heavily in key maritime hubs. In the west, Murmansk serves as the Arctic gateway to Europe. Ice-free year-round, heavily fortified, and closely integrated with Russia's logistics and naval networks. In the east, ports such as Vladivostok and Nakodka connect the Arctic route to the Pacific, linking it directly to the markets of East Asia. Together, these ports form a Eurasian maritime spine, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific across the top of the world. As climate change accelerates and global supply chains search for resilience, the Northern Sea Route is no longer a distant concept. It is a growing reality, one that reduces dependence on Western-controlled choke points and places Russia at the center of a new global trade map. In the modern world, control over routes means control over flows. And in the Arctic, those flows may soon reshape global commerce. Russia builds a new Arctic world. Across the top of the world, Russia is constructing something unprecedented. An entire civilization designed to function in ice, a network of ports, bases, and infrastructure that turns the Arctic from a frozen frontier into a geopolitical engine. Everything begins with Murmansk, the warm water giant of the Arctic. Ice-free year-round thanks to the Barents Sea currents, It is Russia's northern gateway to Europe, a port where nuclear submarines dock only kilometers away from commercial LNG tankers. To the east rises Siberia, the jewel of the Yamal Peninsula. Built almost from nothing, it now feeds Europe and Asia with Arctic LNG, becoming the anchor of Russia's new polar economy. Dudinka, on the Yenisei River, powers the world's metal supply through Norilsk nickel, while Tiksi, Pevek, and Providenia form a staircase of ports stretching across the Laptov, East Siberian, and Chukchi seas. Each a critical stop in Russia's ambition to dominate the northern sea route. But ports alone cannot protect this new world. On Kotelny Island and Wrangel Island, Russia has revived Soviet bases, placing radar domes and anti-air batteries where polar bears once roamed undisturbed. Farther west, Nagarskoye Air Base on Franz Josef Land stands as the northernmost military airfield on Earth. And overlooking the entire region is Severomorsk, headquarters of the Northern Fleet, the backbone of Russia's nuclear deterrent. To bind these outposts together, Russia is building megastructures once thought impossible. The Northern Latitudinal Railway, new LNG terminals, floating nuclear power plants supplying remote towns, and a network of Arctic fiber optic cables that will give the polar region digital sovereignty. Together, these ports, bases, and megaprojects form a single message. Russia is not adapting to the Arctic. It is claiming it. Territories that preserve Russian continuity. At the remotest ends of the Eurasian continent lie the territories that determine whether Russia can remain a continental power. These far-flung regions, wild, sparsely populated, yet strategically indispensable, form the outer ring that sustains the continuity of the Russian state. Nowhere is this clearer than in Kamchatka, a volcanic peninsula thrusting into the northern Pacific. Its calderas, snowfields, and black sand coastlines hide some of Russia's most important military assets: the submarine bases of the Pacific Fleet. Isolated and protected by nature itself, Kamchatka serves as Russia's eastern bastion, the place from which it maintains a foothold in the Pacific arena dominated by the United States and its allies. Southward, the landscape softens into Primary, a region that anchors Russia to Asia's economic heartbeat. Vladivostok, with its sweeping bridges and warship-lined harbors, stands as the country's primary gateway to China, Korea, and Japan. In a century where Asia drives global markets, Primary ensures that Russia is not a landlocked Eurasian giant, but a participant in the Pacific economy. Far inland, beyond the taiga and steppe, the Altai Mountains rise like a natural fortress, sheltering some of the most fertile land in Siberia. Nearby lies Lake Baikal, the deepest and purest reservoir of freshwater on the planet. In an era of shifting climate and ecological strain, Baikal and the Altai region form Russia's environmental treasury, a lifeline of water, biodiversity, and arable land that will matter more with every passing decade. Binding all these distant edges together is the Trans-Siberian Railway, a steel artery stretching 9,000 kilometers from Moscow to Vladivostok. More than a transport network, it is the mechanism that keeps Russia whole, connecting ports, military bases, and isolated communities across a continent-sized state. These edge-of-the-world frontiers are not Russia's periphery. They are the foundation of its survival. The Arctic axis of the 21st century. In the 21st century, the partnership between Russia and China is no longer defined only by land borders or shared political interests. It is increasingly anchored in a region once considered unreachable, the Arctic. As ice retreats and new routes open, Beijing has declared the top of the world a strategic priority under its Polar Silk Road doctrine, an extension of the Belt and Road Initiative into the frozen oceans of the North. For China, the Arctic offers something priceless: a shorter maritime route to Europe, access to critical minerals, and participation in a region historically dominated by Russia. Moscow, isolated by sanctions and seeking new partners, has welcomed this Arctic outreach. Joint projects now span the Siberian coast, from Yamal LNG, where Chinese financing and technology helped build Russia's flagship LNG export hub, to the mining complexes extracting nickel, copper, and rare minerals essential for China's battery and electronics industries. This collaboration has created an economic symbiosis. Russia provides the resources and the ice-protected territory, while China brings capital, markets, and global ambitions. But the Arctic is not simply a zone of cooperation. It is becoming a new front in the US-China rivalry. Washington views China's polar ambitions with growing unease, and it sees Russia's control over the northern sea route as a potential geopolitical lever. In this evolving contest, the region stretching from Murmansk to Yamal and all the way to Chukotka has emerged as the backbone of Eurasian integration. These Arctic corridors link Russian ports, pipelines, and military bases with Asian markets, forming a northern superhighway that could reshape global trade patterns. Together, Russia and China are building not just infrastructure, but a new axis of power at the top of the world, one that may define the balance of the century ahead. The future of the Arctic is not predetermined. It will be shaped by climate, great power rivalry, and the speed at which ice recedes. For Russia, each possible outcome carries a different destiny: one of resurgence, stagnation, or confrontation. The first scenario is the most transformative: a fully operational Arctic maritime chain rivaling the Suez Canal. In this future, the northern sea route becomes a reliable corridor linking Asia and Europe, with year-round convoys escorted by Russia's nuclear icebreakers. Murmansk, Sabeta, and Pavek evolve into major global hubs, and Russia collects transit fees, expands LNG exports, and cements its role as the indispensable gatekeeper of the polar ocean. Such an outcome would elevate Russia into a central pillar of 21st century trade, compensating for declines in other sectors. The second scenario envisions a seasonal route under total Russian control. Ice melts enough to allow navigation several months a year, but storms, drifting ice, and limited infrastructure prevent reliable international traffic. The route functions primarily as a national artery, supplying northern settlements, linking Arctic ports, and exporting LNG and minerals. Russia maintains dominance and sovereignty, but gains limited global influence. The Arctic becomes valuable, but not transformational, a regional lifeline rather than a geopolitical revolution. The third scenario is the most dangerous: a fragmented zone contested by NATO, the United States, and China. Melting ice accelerates military deployments, overlapping claims, and surveillance races. Russia faces pressure from the West and quiet competition from China, while defending thousands of kilometers of vulnerable coastline. Instead of opportunities, the Arctic becomes a front line. Each scenario leads Russia down a different path, but all confirm the same truth: Russia's future is inseparable from the fate of the Arctic. The Arctic is not just a frontier for Russia, it is the foundation of the country's survival in the 21st century. Strip the Arctic away, and Russia as a great power collapses. Its economy weakens, its borders open, and its geopolitical relevance evaporates. Every pillar of Russian strength ties back to the top of the world. First, energy. More than 80% of Russia's gas and a substantial share of its oil flow from Arctic and subarctic regions. Yamal, Western Siberia, and the northern offshore fields generate the revenues that fund Russia's budget, military, and social stability. Without Arctic hydrocarbons, Russia loses its economic engine, and with it, its political leverage over Europe and Asia. Second, the Arctic is Russia's strategic shield. Across thousands of kilometers of frozen coastline, the ice and remoteness create the country's only secure flank. Here lie the bases that host Russia's nuclear submarines, the core of its second strike deterrent. Without the Arctic, Russia's heartland, running from St. Petersburg to the Urals, would be exposed like an open plain. Third, the Arctic is Russia's trade lifeline of the future. As sanctions tighten and Western markets close, the Northern Sea route offers the only alternative corridor capable of connecting Russia to Asia without passing through Western-controlled choke points. In a shrinking economic environment, this route is not optional. It is existential. Fourth, Russia's raw materials and industrial survival depend on the Arctic. Nickel, palladium, rare metals, and vast freshwater reservoirs form the backbone of modern technology and industry. Most of these reserves are locked in Siberia and the far north. Finally, the Arctic grants Russia geopolitical leverage. Control of this region ensures Moscow remains indispensable to China, unpredictable to Europe, and unavoidable for the United States. Remove the Arctic. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Leave your reflections below, subscribe to the Geography channel for more geopolitical explorations, and share this video to expand the discussion. See you next time in our ongoing journey through history, power, and place.